The man was clearly just an ordinary science teacher, yet he was escorted by a mysterious unit into a prison to teach. But his students were not human. They were others known as monsters. Even special bullets couldn't hurt them in the slightest. He originally thought that if he did his duty and finished his classes, he would be able to leave. He never imagined he would become the target all the inmates were fighting over. Time goes back to 3 days earlier. In a boundless desert, several armored vehicles moved forward slowly. The ones given top protection by these vehicles were 6 high school teachers. Their escorts warned them coldly, "During class, you are not allowed to leave the designated area. Avoid any behavior that could provoke the prisoners." Everyone froze for a moment. Prisoners were still people, no matter what. Why were they being described as so terrifying? Someone introduced herself. "My name is Lala, I'm a science teacher." Hearing this, the man found it a coincidence. He was also a science teacher, named Dante. As they started talking, the atmosphere eased a bit. 2 more people introduced themselves as IT and music teachers. The last 2 were an art teacher and a math teacher. Even so, they were still nervous in the vehicle. They had no idea what fate awaited them, because they were heading to the largest prison in the world, Fogland. "Don't scare us like that. This is an international prison. What could possibly happen?" Lala's voice went out of pitch. A male teacher on the other side snorted. "It's because it's an international prison that I'm more suspicious. Do you know how Fogland came to be? 50 years ago, a meteorite suddenly fell into this desert. 5 years later, nations joined forces to build a gigantic prison on this desert." Hearing this, one male teacher shot to his feet. He had heard about this online. The chubby teacher spoke slowly. "A scholar once said, Fogland opened the gates of hell. So I'm guessing we're going to that prison to teach monsters." Dante couldn't hold back a laugh. "We're highly educated people, and you believe that nonsense? No matter what crimes they've committed, they still have the right to education. Education for all, without discrimination." The chubby teacher asked, Dante, "You're not scared at all? Even if the rumors are fake, it's still an international prison. The ones inside are world-class criminals." To Dante, they were people who lacked education. The 2 male teachers looked at him like he was an idiot. "Just our luck, we've got a bookworm in this vehicle." Meanwhile, the driver in the lead vehicle contacted the base. 5 minutes until we enter Fogland. When Dante saw the gate with his own eyes, he was stunned. The moment they stepped into the zone, dense fog like a wall blocked everything in front of them. Before entering, they were required to hand over all personal belongings. Dante looked around. There was fog everywhere. No matter the direction, there was a surreal, unreal feeling. Only then did he realize the Fogland mentioned by the chubby teacher was not just a scary nickname. Someone warned them again. "Keep your distance from the prisoners. Someone will come shortly to take you to your classrooms." The teachers were quickly separated and sent to their assigned locations. With his footsteps echoing in the corridor, Dante kept telling himself, "There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just teaching a class." He was led into a sealed safe room enclosed by tempered glass. On the table, there was only a microphone. Dante felt uneasy. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? He had never seen glass so thick, let alone taught in a sealed chamber. He knocked on the glass and realized it was far thicker than he had imagined. He even doubted whether the students outside could see the blackboard clearly. Someone reconfirmed his identity. "Are you Teacher Kong?" After confirming, the person solemnly reminded him, "The prisoners are about to enter. Keep your distance. Do not get into any conflict." From that tone, Dante sensed something was off. The man added, "During class, do not leave your seat." The door slammed shut. Moments later, Dante heard a commotion from outside. He didn't know if it was his imagination, but the heavy iron door seemed to tremble. The next second, the iron door was slowly opened. At that moment, Dante came face to face with the true shape of fear. How could they look like this? Their faces and bodies did not resemble normal humans. Even bound in heavy chains, several fully armed guards stood behind them, guns raised. The prisoners were led one by one to their seats. Only then did Dante notice each one had a number hanging on their chest. Among them, one figure was covered in hair with bright blue eyes. He looked like he had walked out of the primitive era. Facing this group of students, Dante didn't know how to speak. The chubby teacher's words flashed through his mind. "We're going to teach monsters." It seemed that man had been right. He took a deep breath to calm himself. He had one thing to do, start the lesson. He walked to the microphone and introduced himself. "Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to meet you. My name is Dante, and I'll be your science teacher." The room below remained dead silent. Not a single person responded. He forced himself to carry on and cracked a cold joke. "Lots of subjects are popular, but the most popular is science, because you can build a rocket to escape." At those words, a few lifted their heads to look at him. They still showed almost no reaction. The fur-covered face suddenly grinned. "This teacher is actually kind of funny. Their reaction made Kong Dante even more embarrassed. This was the first time he had encountered such a classroom atmosphere. He took out a sweet potato. In today's class, the first thing I'll teach you is how to plant a sweet potato. On each student's desk, there was a sweet potato identical to the one in his hand. Planting a sweet potato is simple. All it takes is a small cup and a bit of water. You'll watch it slowly grow into another form. The real purpose of this class was to help them understand the meaning of life. Even though you're prisoners in a jail, today you still sit in a classroom to learn. You're like this sweet potato. No matter how harsh the environment, you still have potential to grow. So from today on, I'll teach you how to plant sweet potatoes. A student suddenly slammed the desk and roared. You mean my head looks like a sweet potato? Kong Dante jumped. That is not what I meant. I'm saying you have infinite potential to grow. Before he could finish, someone else shoved the sweet potato straight into his mouth. Only then did Kong Dante realize something was wrong. Most likely, something was off in all their heads. Very soon, all the prisoners followed that man's lead and ate the sweet potatoes clean. Kong Dante panicked. Don't eat them. Those sweet potatoes are for you to plant. He stood helplessly behind the lectern, staring at the group. What were they trying to do? Weren't they here to learn? A low voice rang out. A man wearing a mask raised his head. Tell us directly how the fog is made. Kong Dante froze. Was he simply curious about fog formation? The man's expression turned dark. You call yourself a scientist and you don't even know what fog is? Kong Dante gave a little laugh. I'm just a teacher, not a scientist. Cracks suddenly appeared in the tempered glass in front of him. The masked man rammed his head into the glass, and it shattered on the spot. You joking with us? You think we're idiots? Terrified, Kong Dante contacted the control room to report that a prisoner had smashed the glass. A large group of armed personnel rushed into the classroom, rifles at the ready. Immediately after, Kong Dante witnessed the most shocking scene of his life. The prisoner students were gunned down one by one, leaving not a single survivor. The classroom turned into hell in an instant. Kong Dante pounded on the door like a madman, begging them to let him out. The only reply was, stay in the room and wait until the execution is over. Very quickly, the floor was covered in blood. Even if those prisoners had problems, should it have come to killing every last one? Before he could think, he saw a gun pressed to the eye of a blind man. He was about to shout when he realized something was wrong. That blind man grabbed the soldier's head with one hand and lifted it high. The next second, with a single crack, the skull was crushed. Kong Dante was dumbfounded. He had thought the armed personnel were slaughtering the prisoners. He never expected the real hunters would be the prisoners. Before he fainted from terror, a hooded man in the crowd stared fixedly at him. The number on that man's chest was 182. The possessive look in 182's eyes was as if he had claimed Kong Dante as his property. When Kong Dante woke up, he was locked in a place that looked like a cell. Locked up with him was 182. Staring at the corridor outside the bar door, his heart was full of panic. He asked where this was. 182 said it was his room. He asked, "Who are you? Why did I end up in your room?" This time, 182 did not answer. A look of shock flashed across Kong Dante's face. He remembered this guy seemed to be a prisoner. He recalled that a riot had broken out during class. His mind had been on the verge of collapse, and he had passed out on the spot. Kong Dante asked, "Is this a prison?" 182 nodded. "It wasn't you who brought me here, was it?" 182 nodded again. Then he handed him a sweet potato. He had kidnapped Kong Dante because he wanted to learn how to plant sweet potatoes. Kong Dante almost broke down. So this person really wasn't right in the head. Burning with rage, he cursed, "You idiot. You brought me here just for a sweet potato?" Judging from the riot earlier, almost everyone here was a monster. They treated human life like grass and ignored the law. At this rate, he would die here sooner or later. Kong Dante walked to the door, trying to find a way to escape. Maybe security outside was looking for him. He peered through the gaps to look outside and froze. His room was high up, with an extremely wide view. Everywhere he looked, there were cells surrounded by dense fog. Kong Dante shook the iron door desperately, trying to make noise. The door was pushed open by him. Could it be the door was never locked? He stepped outside, and the surroundings were shrouded in thick fog. Looking down, he saw layer upon layer of cells stretching endlessly. Rather than a prison, it was a fog land pieced together from countless cell blocks. Almost pleading, Kong Dante turned back. "I'm begging you, take me out of here. I don't want to stay." 182 abruptly covered his mouth. "Shut up. You can't shout in here. And don't think about leaving. I want you to teach me to plant sweet potatoes. Besides, no one has ever escaped from this prison." Kong Dante flung his hand away and gritted his teeth. "I'm not a prisoner. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm not like scum like you. I have to get out." While they argued, a gigantic shadow silently approached. That enormous body nearly scared Kong Dante into tears. 182 only stared coldly, clearly displeased. The hulking, hooded prisoner's eyes were vacant, as if he didn't take them seriously at all. In a low voice, Kong Dante said, "Don't say anything, he'll leave in a second." 182 ignored him and cursed. "Hey, you pighead, what are you looking at?" The prisoner was enraged and raised his fist, charging straight at them. The target of that punch was Kong Dante. One punch knocked him out cold. His suit was also snatched away in passing. When Kong Dante woke up, he heard 182 complaining. "I told you to shut up, but you wouldn't listen." The way 182 looked at him made Kong Dante more irritated. Everything was this guy's fault. Emotionally worked up, he shouted, "If you hadn't called him a pighead, how would I have been beaten? You brainless idiot. You've only got one arm. How could you beat that monster from before? In the end, I'm the one dragged into it." 182 didn't talk back. He quietly stood up and slowly took off his shirt. Kong Dante was startled. "What are you doing?" 182 handed the shirt to him. "Put it on." Only then did Kong Dante see clearly. The one arm he had left was covered with defined muscles. Even with one arm, against that monster, it was hard to say who would win. Kong Dante quickly lowered his voice. "If I put on this uniform, will the rescue team still recognize I'm a teacher?" 182 cut him off coldly. "Stop dreaming. From the moment you stepped in, it became impossible to go back. Don't attract attention, or you'll die faster. That's Fogland." Then 182 pulled another piece of clothing from a box and put it on. "Come on, let's go to the cafeteria. It's mealtime." At the word cafeteria, hope flashed in Kong Dante's eyes. If they went to the cafeteria, they might see guards. If he explained, he might leave this prison. Meanwhile, the fat pig who had stolen his clothes slipped into an alley, jumping in excitement. "This suit is really nice." He was thinking about the tie and glasses, but he'd been beaten badly by 182 and gave up. A thin figure appeared and asked where he'd gotten the clothes. The fat pig dropped to his knees at once. "Lord Shoulder, I stole it off a teacher." He embellished the story. "That teacher from the sweet potato lesson is in Tofu Village right now. I think 182 took him there." Upon hearing this, Lord Shoulder smiled. "Is that so? Go on." Then his blade flashed. Before the fat pig could finish, Shoulder cut him down with a single stroke. After twitching twice, he went completely still. With a twisted smile, Shoulder said, "I've finally found you, teacher." On the other side, Kong Dante followed 182 toward the cafeteria. He had been trembling since he stepped out the door. The prisoners looked more terrifying one after another. To him, this was a nightmare. To them, it was another ordinary day in Fogland. 182 glared. "Don't stare everywhere. Stick close to me and eat." Kong Dante lowered his head and followed behind, pretending he hadn't seen anything. Soon, they reached the cafeteria. The order here was far better than outside. No one was causing trouble. Every prisoner stood in line. Kong Dante looked toward the serving window and saw a figure standing there, a guard. He was shocked and overjoyed. If he could speak to that person, he might be rescued. He forced himself to calm down. He wore prison clothes now. He had to be careful. It was 182's turn. 182 drawled, "Give me some extra ham." The server rolled his eyes and smacked him on the head with the ladle. "Get lost." Then it was Kong Dante's turn. He whispered to the guard, "I'm the missing teacher, Kong Dante. During the sweet potato lesson, I was kidnapped. You must be looking for me. Get me out." 182 watched him like he was an idiot, but didn't stop him. Kong Dante spoke faster. "Contact your superiors. They must be worried about me." Halfway through, he sensed something was wrong. The guard's eyes were empty and numb, nothing like a normal person's. Seeing those eyes, his whole body went rigid. Was this person really a guard? Seeing he wasn't handing his tray, the server knocked him with the ladle. "If you're not eating, get out of the way." Back at the table, Kong Dante had no appetite. The plate of wilted greens killed what little desire to eat he had. The prisoners beside him drooled over his meal. He had thought the cafeteria meant rescue. He never imagined a guard looked more abnormal than the prisoners. Perhaps from the moment he entered, he had already been completely abandoned. After all, people died here every day. One less teacher was nothing anyone cared about. 182 ate with relish. Kong Dante turned his gaze back to 182. If he wanted to survive, maybe he would have to rely on this fool. He forced a smile. "Didn't you want to learn how to plant sweet potatoes? I can teach you. You teach me how to get out." He planned to use 182's simplicity and wheedle a way to escape. 182 paused, then lifted his head. "Do you really think I'm stupid? You think you can trade a way out with one sweet potato?" Kong Dante hurriedly explained. "How could I think you're stupid? Didn't you bring me here because you wanted to plant sweet potatoes? Once you've learned, you won't need me." After a moment of silence, 182 spoke slowly. "There's no escaping this place. Give up that idea. Unless you can become the supreme leader here." "Supreme leader?" Kong Dante was stunned. "You mean, the boss of this place? One like you?" "Impossible," 182 said. "Only people like Shoulder are qualified to be leaders." Kong Dante pressed him about who Shoulder was. No matter how he asked, 182 refused to answer again. Seeing his attitude turn cold, Kong Dante dropped his smile. Since you won't help me, I'll stay away from me. I'll find someone else. He turned and left 182. If he returned to normal society, he would use the law to uproot this prison. A sudden commotion broke out in the cafeteria. Everyone turned to the entrance. A surge of joy rose in Kong Dante's heart. Could the rescue team have arrived? Under everyone's gaze, he shouted, "Gentlemen of the rescue team, I'm over here. I'm Kong Dante, a teacher who came to give lessons. I've been kidnapped by the prison." Halfway through his sentence, he realized something was wrong. The people who had come in wore prison uniforms. A moment later, he froze. Standing in front of him was an unbelievably tall man. The man lowered his head and said blandly, "Long time no see, teacher. Do you still remember me?" Kong Dante's eyes filled with terror. How could he forget this man? Among everyone he had ever met, this man was the tallest. The prisoners lowered their voices. "Lord Shoulder is here. Didn't think he'd come to the cafeteria today." The man standing before him was one of the 6 great shoulders, the tower. This time, he had come to find Kong Dante. "I heard you taught a sweet potato class. But I'm not interested in planting sweet potatoes. I want to know how to manufacture fog." Kong Dante was shaking. He had no idea what this fog was. When the tower took out 3 blue spheres, every prisoner's eyes turned greedy. Kong Dante remembered the masked prisoner had also asked about making fog. Could it be the fog wasn't the mist outside, but these blue spheres? Forcing himself to stay calm, Kong Dante said he had never seen them. He had no idea how such a thing was made. That sentence ignited the tower's rage. "You're a science teacher, and you don't know? Isn't a teacher supposed to know everything?" Kong Dante finally became certain of one thing. Everyone in this prison was insane. This was the first time he had seen such a thing. How could he possibly know? The tower's expression darkened. "For your sake, we 6 shoulders have been waiting in your room. Now I'm taking you back to give them an explanation." A chill ran through Kong Dante. He had just escaped 182. Was he going to be taken by the tower? The tower grabbed him by the collar and held 1 fog to his mouth. "Eat it. 1 taste and you'll understand." The blue sphere radiated a sinister allure. Kong Dante resisted. The tower gave him no choice and tried to force it in. All the prisoners stared at the scene, eyes full of desire. Kong Dante slapped at the tower's hand, knocking all 3 spheres to the floor. "I said I'm not eating it. Why do you have to make me?" The instant the 3 spheres rolled, the place erupted. The prisoners went crazy, rushing forward and brawling to get the fog. Kong Dante couldn't make sense of it. What was this stuff? Why did it make them lose control? The tower gave a cold laugh. "See? Fog is an amazing thing. And you rejected it. In this prison, fog is more precious than gold. Those who take fog feel unbelievably good." Some prisoners who failed to grab any got down and gnawed at the floor like wild dogs, licking residue. The one who did eat it was lost in pleasure, feeling nothing as his limbs were hacked off. The sight made Kong Dante sick to his stomach. He had no idea why he had been dragged here. This was a living hell. "Can I go home?" His voice trembled as he pleaded with the tower. "I'm just a teacher, not a scientist. I don't understand anything you're talking about." The tower sneered. "Don't joke with me. I've watched dramas. Even a chemistry teacher can make something that sells really well." Kong Dante broke down. "That's a TV show. It's fake. You lunatic." The cafeteria fell silent. The tower spoke slowly. "So you're just trash." He had thought being the first shoulder to capture the teacher would make him the strongest. He never expected it would amount to nothing. While Kong Dante was dazed, the tower reached into his mouth. He slowly pulled out a long knife. "Since you're trash, then go die." Despair filled Kong Dante's eyes. Dying like this might not be so bad. With 1 stroke, it probably won't hurt much. As he closed his eyes, the sound of metal clashing rang out from afar. A dining fork flew over, slicing past the tower's arm, then slamming into the distant wall. Kong Dante's life was spared. Looking at the tower's arm, nearly half of it had been sliced off. He whipped his head around to see who dared to strike at him. He hadn't seen clearly when a big hand grabbed his head. That hand clamped down hard on his skull. Looking closely, the owner of that hand had only 1 arm. "You." The tower was surprised. "Didn't think you'd make a move." Kong Dante's eyes were wide. 182 had stepped in. 182 said darkly, "He's under my protection. If you touch him, I'll kill you." As the words fell, 182 kicked out. His foot landed squarely on the tower's neck. The force of that kick snapped the tower's spine on the spot. The moment his kick landed, 182 retreated, opening distance. The scene stunned all the prisoners. The tower, hailed as one of the 6 great shoulders, had been knocked down in an instant. Only now did Kong Dante realize how strong 182 was. The prisoners shouted excitedly. "A new shoulder is about to be born. New shoulder. Tell us your name." 182 couldn't have cared less. He turned to Kong Dante. "Teacher, let's go back." He slung Kong Dante over his shoulder and walked off. The prisoners behind them thought 182's name was Teacher. Once they had left the cafeteria, Dante was relieved to be alive. He stared at 182 in disbelief. This man was nothing like scrawny. He finally asked, "Why did you sign up for the sweet potato class? Was it also for the fog?" 182 shot back, "Can you make fog?" Dante's scalp tingled. "I can't. I'm begging you, stop bringing up fog." So 182 explained why he signed up. That day, he had been wandering around the block when a long line blocked his path. He told one prisoner to move aside. The man refused to budge. "No cutting. Everyone's lining up. I hear someone from outside is teaching something new. Spots are hard to get. You have to queue too." At first, 182 had no interest. Then he heard they'd be issuing new clothes. That fired him up. He hadn't had new clothes in a long time. So he muscled into the line. After hearing this, Dante was dumbfounded. "So that was why he enrolled? Then why did you save me?" Dante asked again. 182's answer was simple. "Because you're wearing my clothes. You're under my protection." Then he looked disgusted. "And besides, you peed yourself." Not long after, 182 grabbed clothes off someone for Dante and told him to change. Dante took off 182's shirt and carefully washed it clean. He couldn't understand why, for such an old shirt, he didn't just throw it away. But 182 was serious. "It has 182 written on it. Anything with 182 written on it is mine. I can't throw it away." Dante was full of question marks. He confirmed again, this guy wasn't right in the head. To curry favor with this powerful umbrella, Dante volunteered. "Take off the clothes you're wearing too. I'll wash them for you. You've only got one hand. It's not convenient for you to do laundry." So 182 sat there wearing only shoes, squatting and watching him wash. By the time they were done, it was midnight. Dante's heart was still uneasy. Those monsters called shoulders were surely still looking for him. His stomach growled. If he'd known, he wouldn't have turned his nose up at the wilted greens. He spotted a sweet potato on the ground. It was 182's. He quietly picked it up and glanced at 182, who was sleeping on the upper bunk. He was about to take a bite when a big hand smacked the sweet potato away. Looking down from above, 182 said, "Teacher, are you a thief?" Dante mumbled an explanation. "I'm just too hungry. Could you give me a little food?" 182 ignored him, jumped down, and carved 182 into the sweet potato. "This is mine. No one else is ever allowed to touch it." Then he told Dante to close his eyes because he was going to hide the sweet potato. In 182's eyes, this teacher would likely try to steal it again. On the other side, the tower, who had been defeated by 182, was curled up in a corner, repairing himself. He still couldn't believe it. That kick had come too suddenly. He hadn't even seen what happened. The tower had a talent forged in the thick mist. His spine was as hard as reinforced steel. Yet even with a spine that absurdly tough, it had been shattered to pieces by a single kick from 182. He remembered very clearly. 182 had said, "That teacher is under my protection." So he planned to snatch the teacher away from 182 by force. But the masked man's figure silently appeared beside him. "Looks like you really did find the teacher. So why didn't you inform us?" The tower gave a cold little laugh. "Don't brag. I'm the one destined to become the supreme leader here. Why would I share him with you?" The next moment, the mechanic's hammer beside him suddenly vanished. When he looked up, the hammer had already landed in the masked man's hand. He slowly walked up to the tower, his voice as cold as ice within the fog. "Your dream is far too big. So big it doesn't match your strength." Real fear flashed through the tower's eyes. "What are you going to do?" The masked man gave a vicious smile. "Those who break the rules can only be dismantled." In the next second, the hammer crashed down. The body that had just been repaired was instantly smashed to pieces again. This masked man was one of the 6 great shoulders, Hound. 10 minutes later, Hound had already slaughtered all of the tower's underlings. He gathered his own troops, mounted his motorcycle, and roared off toward Tofu Village. Meanwhile, Dante was following 182, heading for the place with the best sunlight. Earlier, he had taken advantage of 182's habit of carving on sweet potatoes and tricked him. Once you carve on a sweet potato, its life force gets weaker, and it's easy for it to die. He actually felt very guilty inside. But to escape this prison, he had no choice. Completely in the dark, 182 led him around, looking for sunlight. After 2 hours of walking, they still hadn't found any direction that led closer to the entrance. 182 scratched his head. "I don't know the way either. We just keep heading toward the brightest spot, that's all." That line broke Dante's last bit of composure. "Why are you only saying that now? We just wasted 2 hours for nothing?" He simply flopped to the ground. "Then you carry me. If you want me to save your sweet potato, you'll carry me and keep walking." To his surprise, 182 suddenly collapsed with a thud. He fell face down on the ground, motionless. Dante sensed something was wrong. With 182's physical ability, there was no way he would be this exhausted. His hands shaking, he lifted 182's hood. The next moment, Kong Dante was completely stunned. 182's eyes were empty, and strange blue liquid was flowing from his mouth and nose. Kong Dante panicked and slapped his face frantically. "We're not looking for sunlight today. We're going back right now." Without 182, he had no way to survive. He clutched 182's shoulders in a death grip and screamed hoarsely, "You bastard. Don't leave me here alone. I'm begging you, wake up." Before he had finished speaking, a loud crash sounded behind him. A man walked up behind him, reached out, lifted his eyelids for a look, and said slowly, "You must be an ordinary person, right?" Only then did Kong Dante see clearly. The newcomer was a young man who looked harmless and gentle. He had heard the scream just now and come over out of curiosity. The young man took Kong Dante back to his place and handed him some food. Behind him stood a blue-haired girl. She advised Kong Dante to slow down. "You'll get indigestion if you eat like that." The young man introduced himself. "My name is Rambine. She's Lychee." Kong Dante gave his own name. "I'm Kong Dante." This was the first time in this prison he had met people he could have a normal conversation with. He had never expected that there would even be a woman here. The girl laughed out loud. "I was thinking of cutting my hair short and pretending to be a man. In Tofu Village, women stand out too much." Rambutan explained. "We came from further inside. The closer you get to the center, the more things like blocks stop existing as a concept." During their conversation, Rambutan learned that Kong Dante wasn't a prisoner, but had been kidnapped. And the person who had kidnapped him was now lying on the bed, unconscious. Although Kong Dante still didn't understand why this place was so bizarre everywhere, he knew one thing clearly. He had to escape. After hearing his story, the two of them exclaimed in unison, "Then you're the teacher from that teacher kidnapping operation?" Kong Dante's hair stood on end. Even they knew about it? It turned out the whole prison had heard. The enforcers had set that trap up in advance. They even seized control of the class and wouldn't let anyone else interfere. Rambutan had never imagined that the central figure of that incident would now be sitting right in front of him. Lychee, however, keenly pointed out, "But 182 doesn't look like an enforcer. He's more like an idiot." Kong Dante nodded. "He really isn't an enforcer. He kidnapped me just to learn how to grow sweet potatoes." The two of them froze for a moment, then burst into helpless laughter. "So you were dragged here over a single sweet potato?" Seeing them laugh so genuinely, Kong Dante's eyes suddenly grew moist. In this Fogland, this was the first time he felt someone was treating him like a human being. Although 182 had kidnapped him here, 182 had never hurt him. Just now, when he suddenly collapsed, Kong Dante had thought it was heatstroke. Lychee, however, calmly uttered a single word. "Limbo." So-called limbo is withdrawal. They've been abruptly cut off from fog. A lot of prisoners lying around in a daze on the street are like that. They can't get fog and fall into a lost state. They'll eventually wake up. But if they enter that lost state again and again, their brains start to rot. Kong Dante pressed her. "What exactly is fog? Why is everyone fighting over it?" He soon got his answer. Fog is a sacred drug that grants talents. It magnifies potential you never knew you had, or the abilities you've always longed for. Kong Dante blurted out, "Isn't that just superpowers from a movie?" Rambutan cut him off. "No, it just looks that way. It lets you truly break through the limits of being human. Our goal is to use that power to escape this prison." Kong Dante listened in stunned silence. At last, he had met people who shared his goal. Meanwhile, Hound was searching everywhere for his whereabouts. Not just Hound. The other shoulders were looking for him too. They all had a single target, Tofu Village. Here, Lychee and Rambutan decided to invite Kong Dante to join their escape plan. "We're already prepared. As long as you agree, we'll leave together." Kong Dante instinctively refused. "I'm just an ordinary person. I should think about contacting the guards first, then consider escaping. I'm not a criminal here. If I attempt a jailbreak on impulse, I might die without even leaving a corpse." Rambutan rejected that outright. "No one can get in. No one will willingly step into the fog realm. Not even the guards." His tone grew solemn. "Think it over. Once we actually move, if you still haven't made up your mind, none of us will be able to look after you." Then he told Kong Dante something even more terrifying. "The longer you stay here, the more easily you'll be eroded by fog. Even if you've never eaten those blue fog spheres, this white mist itself is made of fog particles." A chill ran through Kong Dante. So every breath he took was basically poisoning himself? Fog is a gift from God. To manifest a talent, you need a huge amount of fog particles. But to get someone addicted, it's enough to let them unknowingly inhale this white fog over a long period of time. Once you're addicted, you'll start craving fog, going mad for it. After a moment of silence, Kong Dante asked, "What about you two? You've been here a long time too. Are you already addicted? Even if you escape, won't you die soon anyway?" Faced with that question, the two of them remained calm. "Yeah, once we get out, it's probably still a dead end. But so what? At least we might get another decade or so. We've agreed, even if we have to die, we refuse to die in this prison. It turned out they were a couple who had once planned to get married in the outside world. Their words did shake Kong Dante. He didn't want to die here either. Just like they said, even one day outside would be better than 10 years in here. But then Kong Dante suddenly felt a gaze on him. 182's eyes were staring through the gap between the two, locked on him. He screamed in fright. His scream immediately drew the attention of the pair as well. 182 had woken up. That meant he would have to keep growing sweet potatoes with 182. Kong Dante was at a total loss, not knowing what to do. If he said he wanted to escape with these two, would 182 turn on him? After all, this was the monster who had taken down the tower. 182 took the sweet potato out of his pocket and carefully examined it. Only after confirming it was undamaged did he breathe a sigh of relief. Kong Dante, however, knew the nightmare was starting again. 182 would definitely keep pestering him about growing sweet potatoes. Seeing his stiff expression, Rambutan laughed. "Why are you so scared?" In his eyes, 182 was nothing more than a fog zombie. Once someone falls into a limbo state, they stay weak and powerless until the next fog wave arrives. After hearing that, Kong Dante finally relaxed a little. He had been worried that Rambutan and Lychee might be hurt by 182. The next moment, Rambutan lifted his thick leg, and his expression turned cold. In his view, 182 was a potential problem, so he might as well get rid of him here. But 182 didn't react to his attack at all, as if he hadn't even seen it. He showed no concern whatsoever. Seeing things go wrong, Kong Dante hurriedly shouted to stop him. "Wait, don't fight." He ran up to 182 and said, "I'm leaving this place. From now on, I don't need your protection. From here on, we go our separate ways." 182 seemed unconcerned about his leaving. He only cared about one thing. How do you grow a sweet potato? Kong Dante sighed, snatched the sweet potato from his hand, and went to the side to pour a cup of water. "Watch closely. Sweet potatoes are very hardy. Put it in the cup, add a bit of water, and give it enough sunlight, and it'll grow on its own." When he finished, he deliberately urged, "Hurry and go look for sunlight. Otherwise the sun will be setting soon." 182 said he didn't know the way and wanted Kong Dante to go with him. Kong Dante was driven to the brink of madness. "Rambutan, please, just drive him out. I'm willing to escape with you. No matter if it's a hail of bullets out there, or if I get arrested for helping with a jailbreak, whatever happens, I'm willing to run with you." With a smack, Rambutan flung 182 out the door. The sweet potato that fell to the ground was carefully picked up again by 182. In his eyes was an almost obsessive fixation. He was determined to keep this sweet potato alive. After 182 left, Kong Dante finally let out a breath and asked Rambutan to tell him how to get out of this place. Rambutan bent his legs slightly, and the muscles in his thighs bulged at once. "Let me demonstrate." The moment he finished speaking, he kicked off the ground and shot out like an arrow. He moved so fast that Kong Dante could barely see him. It turned out Rambutan's talent was terrifying jumping power and explosive strength. Their plan was to use speed and leap straight over the high walls. Very soon, the three of them reached a high vantage point to survey the terrain. Lychee patted her forehead and activated her talent. Her eyes adjusted focus like a camera as she looked into the distance. Everything she saw was rapidly reconstructed on paper. Kong Dante exclaimed, "You can not only see far, you've also got a photographic memory?" The map they took out was a hand-drawn copy brought from the central region. "This is only a small part of this area." Kong Dante hadn't expected this place to be so enormous. The huge map before his eyes actually recorded only a single corner. Lychee said, "Judging from how big Tofu Village is, we've already come pretty far. Before long, we'll be brushing the edge of Fogland." Kong Dante took a pencil and began marking the map. "There are 4 vagrants here. Mark them as potential threats. And, what do these red dots mean?" At his question, their gazes instantly turned sharp, but they didn't answer. Instead, they casually changed the subject. "Don't overthink it. Anyway, we'll be out of here soon." Meanwhile, in Tofu Village, Hound had already found the badly injured 182. "You little punk, I finally found you. Be good and surrender." It turned out there had long been bad blood between 182 and Hound. Back in that class, Hound had been the first to find Kong Dante and take him away. At that time, 182 had also set his sights on the teacher and had tailed Hound all the way. Hound was furious. "Whose underling are you? You dare to steal my catch?" 182 didn't say a word. He only stared fixedly at the teacher in Hound's hand. He held out the sweet potato in his hand. "You kidnapped the teacher because you want to learn to grow sweet potatoes too? If you don't know how, I'll go ask the teacher." Those words made Hound see red with rage. He flung Kong Dante into the air. He planned to get rid of this troublesome lunatic first, then take the teacher away. After all, other shoulders had their eyes on the teacher too. He needed to finish this quickly. What he hadn't expected was that 182 easily slipped past his attack. That seemingly skinny guy actually had such reaction speed. 182 slowly raised 2 fingers. In the next instant, those 2 fingers drove hard into Hound's waist. With that single strike, Hound lost consciousness. While he was out cold, 182 snatched the teacher away. This was the real truth. The one who had actually kidnapped the teacher was Hound, and 182 had only stolen the teacher back. Now, Hound tore off 182's hood. This time, I'm settling our old score. While 182 was being hunted by Hound, Rambutan and the others were also drawn into a fight. A burly man shaped like a sweet potato suddenly lunged at Kong Dante, trying to grab him in one move. He was sent flying by a single kick from Rambutan. The sight shocked Lychee so much she couldn't help crying out. That's one of the 6 shoulders, Drill Head. His ability is tunneling through the ground. That scream exposed the fact that she was a woman. Because of that split second of distraction, Rambutan got hit by Drill Head. Drill Head was instantly excited. It had been a very long time since he had seen a real woman. His gaze turned greedy. That woman is really pretty. At that, Lychee grabbed Kong Dante and immediately tried to run. She didn't see that behind her, Rambutan's face had gone murderously dark. If you so much as touch a single strand of her hair, I'll kill you. The threat had no effect on Drill Head. In the next second, he dove into the ground, tunneling toward Kong Dante and Lychee's direction. At the same time, Rambutan also charged with everything he had. They made almost the same move. Rambutan was trying to protect his girlfriend, while Drill Head's target had always been Kong Dante. The instant Rambutan landed, Drill Head burst out of the ground from the other side, taking Kong Dante with him as he tunneled away. Kong Dante's been taken by Drill Head. Rambutan's face changed drastically. Drill Head tunneled at tremendous speed, rolling forward underground without stopping. Elsewhere, 182 had already been taken back to base by Hound. His body was covered in wounds and bruises. Hound's underlings wanted to extract information from him. They took out a piece of fog to tempt him. Want this, kid? Get on your knees and beg me. The moment he saw the fog, an intense anger flashed through 182's eyes. At the same time, Kong Dante had been brought back to Drill Head's underground base and slid down along a pipe. Looking at this world of drill bits, his heart went cold. This was Drill Head's territory. He was almost certain he was done for. Hound's men were still interrogating 182. When they couldn't get any answers, one of them simply shoved the fog into his own mouth. Think about it. Without fog, you can't do anything. You can't move, and you've got no strength. Just as he swallowed the fog down to his throat, in the next second, 182's mouth was already clamped around his neck. 182 bit through his windpipe and forcibly snatched the half-swallowed fog out of his throat. Then he raised his head and grinned madly at the others. You beat me half to death just now. Now it's my turn. An hour later, Hound rushed back to base. The sight before him left him completely stunned. Every one of his underlings in the base had died a violent death. There was only one possible killer. 182. He fell to his knees and roared, "Brothers, I've failed you. Damn you, 182, I'll kill you for this." By this time, 182 had already returned to the cafeteria. He walked straight up to the serving window and said to the server, "Water." The man replied impatiently, "Get in line." Because he cut the line, 182 angered the other prisoners. They all started grumbling. In the next instant, he slammed both hands down on the counter so hard that everyone flinched. No one was willing to go head-to-head with a lunatic. So he got the water he wanted. Back in his room, 182 placed the sweet potato by the window, letting it slowly soak up sunlight. After a whole day, he realized the sweet potato hadn't changed at all. He stared for a moment, then finally realized he had been tricked. Consumed with fury, 182 muttered, "Teacher, I'm going to kill you." Meanwhile, Kong Dante was standing deep in the drill bit world, nearly in despair. He knew that getting out of here was almost impossible. Drill Head stood in front of him and asked, "Can you manufacture fog? You're a science teacher. This kind of small thing, you should be able to do, right?" Kong Dante braced himself. "Actually, we don't need to manufacture it. Isn't this white fog in the air just a preliminary form of fog? All you need to do is breathe it in deeply." Before he could finish, his throat was seized. "Are you joking? If that were enough, who would bother chasing fog? You can't collect the fog in the air. You have to gather it and then compress it." Hearing that, Kong Dante was completely stunned. As a science teacher, he was very familiar with such basic principles. When dawn comes and the air cools to the dew point, fog condenses into tiny droplets of water. If you could make those droplets gather and compress, maybe you could. His eyes lit up. "I know how to manufacture fog now." Over the next 2 hours, Kong Dante began putting his theory into practice. Just as he had guessed, he really did slowly gather the fog from the air. Then he collected this liquefied fog in a storage tank, and that was that. He laughed in excitement. "I really am a genius. Now I'm finally saved. In this prison, no one will dare touch me again." Elsewhere, Rambutan and Lychee were looking for new partners for their escape plan. They picked someone who looked a bit simple-minded and invited him to join. His demeanor suddenly changed. He pulled a knife from his waist. "Stop talking nonsense. No one can get out of here. Get lost," Lychee said gloomily. "Looks like no matter how innocent or stupid someone seems, in this place, no one is unaware of that matter." Rambutan felt the only one who didn't know was that teacher. From the map, Lychee had already guessed he must have been hidden underground by Drillhead. In Drillhead's territory, Dante used a fog net capture method to extract liquid moisture from the white fog. It was the kind of device used in arid regions to produce water from the air. The principle was simple. When the temperature drops to the dew point, water vapor condenses into droplets on a mesh structure. At dawn, when humidity is very high, he applied this principle to Fogland. He replaced ordinary netting with breathable insect screen and shaped the bottom into an arc. This channeled the condensed droplets into a collection tank. This water was naturally saturated with fog. Because the humidity here was near saturation, the amount of water he collected far exceeded expectations. Drillhead stared at the tank of fog water, his face full of shock. "Teacher Kong, how did you do that? Can you teach us?" Dante shook his head. "This is water made from the purest fog in Fogland. As for the method, I'm not an idiot. Why would I tell you?" Although he had successfully produced fog water, he had no idea what its concentration really was. Drillhead, however, couldn't hold back any longer. He stuck his hand into the water and took a small sip. In the next second, his pupils dilated sharply. "That taste, yes, this is fog." He and his men cheered wildly. They finally had an infinite supply of fog. All the credit went to Dante. He became, in one leap, the producer of this underground world. Drillhead eagerly presented him with a modified prison uniform. "Teacher Kong, you were born to wear a suit. How do you like this customized prison uniform? From today on, no one will dare lay a finger on you. You're one of us now. Your safety is my responsibility." Dante thought to himself. This Drillhead was probably the one closest to becoming the supreme leader. Maybe he could use this connection to reach the prison's real management. Rambutan turned to leave. "Get some rest first. Tonight, we're throwing a grand ball. Thanks to you, we don't have to ration fog anymore. Tonight, I'm going to ascend using all the fog." Dante was completely baffled. Ascend? Night fell. On the tray, there were a full 1,000 fog spheres piled up. All the members circled around the fog, dancing a bizarre dance. They beat gongs and drums as if performing some kind of religious ritual. Drillhead clapped his hands to signal everyone to be quiet. Looking at the tray piled high with fog spheres, Dante sucked in a cold breath. Were they going to eat all of that in one go? Standing before the crowd, Drillhead shouted, "I am the Drill King, ruler of the underground world. Good evening, my drill soldiers. Now is the time for our efforts to bear fruit. Bathed in mist, we've been building our strength. Today, I will challenge ascension." As his voice fell, everyone raised their hands in excitement. They firmly believed their boss would succeed for sure. Drillhead opened his mouth and swallowed dozens of fog spheres in a single gulp. Greed filled everyone's eyes, but not one person stepped forward to snatch any. Very soon, he was eating more and more. His mouth was so stuffed it could barely close. But no change occurred for a long time. His underlings were still straining their throats shouting ascend, but Drillhead felt that something was wrong. His fingers began to tremble. Even picking up the next fog sphere became difficult. Someone stepped forward in concern, only to realize he could no longer speak. Drillhead had never imagined things would end like this. Maybe today just isn't the day. One underling tried to reassure him. "Then rest for now, boss. We've got endless fog anyway. There's always next time." Soon, someone noticed the boss's head seemed to have gotten longer. It had grown a good bit compared to before. The crowd went completely wild. "It's a sign of ascension." An underling asked excitedly, "Boss, can you feel a new talent?" Drillhead's eyes were already going distant. "I can feel the entire universe." He hadn't yet realized that tiny cracks were spreading across his head. His consciousness was gradually drifting away as he started babbling nonsense. "At the place where the mist rises, I can see all the truths of the world." On the side, Dante could only watch in silence as it all unfolded. Drillhead's final words were, "We're all living inside a pale blue prison." As soon as he finished speaking, his body suddenly exploded, and the fog inside him scattered like raindrops in all directions. His underlings instantly lost control, hurling themselves at the scattered fog in a frenzy. Dante couldn't make sense of it at all. Was this ascension, or a fall? It seemed that only from the moment Drillhead exploded did the revelry truly begin. The ones who normally couldn't get any fog were now risking everything to gulp down the scattered fog. Very soon, Drillhead's remains were devoured until almost nothing was left. All Dante felt was terror. He saw another prisoner whose body swelled and split open from consuming too much fog, finally bursting into a cloud of bloody mist. Someone still relatively lucid stepped forward and shouted, "Stop. If we keep eating, we'll all die." Our bodies can't handle fog at this concentration. Seeing that no one listened, that person pinned his hopes on Kong Dante. You be the boss. Think of a way to stop them. Without another word, Kong Dante turned and ran. Be the boss? Who wants that? I still don't even understand what's going on. There's no way this is the real world. This has to be a dream. He staggered as he ran, tripping over himself. Then he suddenly saw his older brother's figure up ahead. I told you long ago? His brother's voice echoed in the mist. Kong Dante didn't stop to think. Bro, take me away. Get me out of here. When he got close, he froze. The head was actually a perfectly round sphere. He finally broke down completely. Who on earth is going to save me? 1A2, can you save me? It turned out Kong Dante had suffered from selective prosopagnosia since childhood. He couldn't remember his brother's face. When he drew family portraits as a kid, he would casually draw his brother's head as a circle. His brother looked at the drawing and couldn't help laughing. If you draw me like that, you'll never be an artist. In his memory, his brother's face had always been blurry. Sometimes like a crying woman, sometimes like a demonic face. For him, thinking of Big Brother as a circle was easier. Without even realizing it, that circle image became associated with fog spheres in his mind. Kong Dante snapped his eyes open. That was terrifying? Just as he tried to catch his breath, he realized he was inside a strange tent. He heard Rambutan's voice by his ear, along with Lychee's worried questions. I just had a really horrible nightmare. But, why am I here? It turned out they had gone to Drillhead's underground base that day and followed the sewer all the way. They finally dragged him out from a pile of sludge. Lychee said with a smile, we came to save you. Didn't we agree to escape together? Warmth spread through Kong Dante's chest. He had never imagined he could still see such genuine kindness in a place like this. I'm sorry. Because of me, your plan got delayed. Let's leave right now. But Lychee shook her head. Rambutan still needs rest. And we've already come a long way. Right here is the wall we're going to climb over. We even chose a section with no guards on purpose. Kong Dante looked toward the high wall outside the tent, his chest tightening. He sat down and told them everything he had seen underground. Drillhead is dead. The fog I made blew him apart. Everyone went crazy at the time. It was total chaos. Rambutan explained. That's called a fall. Here, people who overdose on fog have their bodies burst open, spewing out all the mist inside them. Everyone else just waits for someone to fall, then goes to eat him. Kong Dante asked again, then what about sublimation? Is that breaking past your limits? They answered, sublimation is dual talents. When someone pushes their ability to the limit and then gains a second talent, that's sublimation. Once someone does that, others will follow and worship him. He'll become the supreme leader. But so far, no one's truly succeeded. Most people die from falling. Even so, Rambutan believed, one day, someone will appear. He'll have endless talents, break this world's rules, and free everyone. That person is who we call the supreme leader. At those words, Kong Dante instinctively thought of 182. He had personally seen that man who only knew how to carve 182 into sweet potatoes easily take down the tower, one of the shoulders. At the same time, 182 was constantly using his ears to hunt for Kong Dante's voice. Just then, Kong Dante absent-mindedly pushed up his glasses. It was this tiny movement that made the searching 182 pause for a moment. 182 looked toward the distant high wall. I think I found you, teacher. By now, 182's hearing had grown almost monstrous. No matter how far the distance, as long as he calmed down and listened, he could precisely lock onto the direction he wanted. This was one of 182's talents. Meanwhile, Drillhead space was almost filled with mist, with workers everywhere assigned to clean up the fog water. A hooded woman looked around and saw a pale blue glow shining from all directions. Looks like plenty of people have fallen here. She bent down as well, joining the workers collecting fog water. Before long, someone's voice cut her off. Stop wasting time picking up that garbage. She looked up to see a red-haired man handing her a full packet of fog spheres. Then the red-haired man casually asked, that guy, have you found him? By that guy, the woman roughly knew who he meant. In all likelihood, the teacher under the one-armed man's protection. Maybe he's already been found, but I'm not too sure. At those words, the man's tone turned heavy. It's been a full year, and this is all you've got? That's really disappointing. That really annoyed the woman. Honestly, I don't see how this job benefits me at all. It's just a commission from the Fog Realm Bureau anyway, isn't it? The red-haired man wasn't in the mood to listen to her complaints. Cut the crap and get to work. A vicious glint flashed in the woman's eyes. Since you put it that way, I guess I'll have to take it seriously. But, shouldn't the pay get serious too? Prices have gone up a lot this year. The red-haired man didn't answer immediately. He just stood there thinking in silence for a while. Soon, he made his decision. As long as you can bring him to me, I'll pay you whatever you want. Elsewhere, Kong Dante didn't sleep at all that night. First because it was too cold, and second because two people's sweet-nothing chatter was far too loud. Realizing his condition, the couple grew a bit embarrassed. Sorry about that. Kong Dante lifted a hand to show he didn't mind. It's fine. If you really want to make it up to me, just hurry up and get me out of here. That's the best thanks you can give me. Very soon, they arrived at the stone wall. The high wall was covered in dried bloodstains. Rambutan was warming up his legs. Looking up at the wall, Kong Dante felt a chill down his spine. Can we really clear it in one jump? When his gaze swept over the bloodstains on the wall, his unease far outweighed any excitement. Is there anything I can do to help? Kong Dante asked. Rambutan handed him a bundle. Just protect this. Then he looked at him again. One more thing. Can you say a prayer? Like the kind Catholics say. Kong Dante was puzzled. I don't believe in God. Why do you want me to pray? What does that have to do with us escaping? Lychee softly explained, it doesn't matter whether it works or not. In a place this hopeless, we just want to believe, a little, that maybe some God might hear us. Just do it. A moment later, Rambutan reached out his hands to them, signaling the two to hold on tight. Kong Dante's heart was pounding wildly. He was about to leave this place. In the next moment, Rambutan's talent erupted, and the muscles in his thighs bulged all at once. Kong Dante and Lychee clung to him with all their strength, mumbling prayers under their breath. Rambutan shouted, I'll count to 3. Then we'll be out of here. You two make sure you hold on. By the time he reached 2, the strength in his legs had built to its peak. With just a slight adjustment in posture, he could launch them over. At that critical moment, Kong Dante squeezed his eyes shut and continued praying in a voice only he could hear. He believed you had to close your eyes to be truly devout. However, at the instant he said 3, a massive fist smashed into Rambutan's face. Right as he pushed off, Rambutan had run straight into the onrushing 182. The clash exploded in an instant. All 3 bodies flipped backward through the air, and Rambutan was almost knocked unconscious by that punch. Kong Dante stared, dumbfounded, at 182 in front of him, not understanding at all why 182 would appear here at this moment. What's more, right now 182 was covered in wounds, his expression dark and grim, with none of his previous foolishly blank look. Kong Dante couldn't help asking, what are you doing here? And what happened to you? 182's anger was almost overflowing. Why did you lie to me? Do you have any idea how much I suffered because you tricked me? As he spoke, 182 raised his huge fist and swung it at Kong Dante. Kong Dante was scared out of his wits. Just before the fist came down, Rambutan dashed forward and yanked Kong Dante out of the way. 182's face turned completely black. If it's a running contest you want, I can play that game too. The 3 of them sprinted madly, all with the same question in their heads. Why had 182 suddenly appeared here, and how had he gotten his strength back? Just then, Lychee suddenly saw something that made her eyes go wide. Following her line of sight, Rambutan froze as well. 182's speed was in no way inferior to his. 182 couldn't help asking, you've got a talent for running too? He had no interest in chatting further with Rambutan. He only spoke coldly to Kong Dante. Stop, or I'll break your legs. Kong Dante was utterly lost. Why are you always clinging to me like this? In the next instant, 182 lashed out with a kick that smashed into Rambutan's legs. The moment his support vanished, Rambutan lost his balance, and all 3 of them went tumbling. 182, however, took a few quick steps across the ground and landed steadily right in front of Kong Dante. I clearly saved your life. Why did you lie to me? His expression was stormy. The method you taught me doesn't make sweet potatoes sprout at all. Kong Dante looked blank. I didn't lie to you at all. Calm down. I did teach you how to grow sweet potatoes, didn't I? 182's expression was on the verge of tears. I watered it, and it got sunlight, but it didn't work. The sweet potato didn't change at all. Kong Dante froze. He checked his watch. Not even a single day had passed. It's only been a day. If it had sprouted already, that would be what's abnormal. 182 ground his teeth. So growing sweet potatoes is fake? All the work I did these days was for nothing? Kong Dante almost laughed in exasperation. How was it for nothing, you big idiot? He explained at length. Everything needs time to grow. That's the most basic common sense. You need at least a week before you can see whether it's grown. 182 was silent for a few seconds and finally realized he had blamed Kong Dante unfairly. So where are you going? Kong Dante answered honestly, I'm leaving here. You don't need me anymore anyway. At that, 182 silently cursed idiot in his head. He pointed at Lychee and Rambutan. You're going out with them? With 182 now turning on the couple, Kong Dante grew annoyed. What are you planning to do? Don't you touch them. He didn't notice that behind him, the couple's expressions were no longer just tense. They were frightened. 182 stared at him coldly. Didn't you say you wanted to live? Kong Dante didn't understand. What's that supposed to mean? 182 pointed behind them. Are you really willing to die for them? In the next moment, Rambutan suddenly roared, Shut up, you bastard. The look he and Lychee gave Kong Dante changed in an instant. I think you've both said enough, haven't you? So could you stop interfering with our escape plan? At that moment, a deep unease welled up in Kong Dante's heart. Rambutan didn't give him time to think. He grabbed him violently. Don't listen to that brain-fried maniac. Mr. Kong Dante, if we don't go now, it'll be too late. Lychee urged from the side. What are you spacing out for? Hold on to him and run. The next second, Rambutan scooped up Kong Dante and snatched him away right under 182's nose. You wanted to get out, didn't you? Then pray hard. Kong Dante's emotions were a mess. He did want to leave, but something felt wrong. Before he could say another word, Rambutan had already jumped, launching himself toward the top of the wall. They reached the top quickly. If Kong Dante just lifted his head, he could see the world outside the wall. Along the way, these two had always seemed to protect him. He had started to trust them. They seemed genuinely good to him. But just as they were about to clear the wall, Rambutan suddenly pressed down hard on Kong Dante's body. Then his foot stomped heavily into Kong Dante's stomach. Kong Dante was stunned. What are you doing? Rambutan looked genuinely regretful. Mr. Kong Dante, you're a good man. Unfortunately, good people don't live long. You'll die in our place. I'm sorry. As soon as he finished, he kicked Kong Dante downward. He and Lychee used the recoil of that kick to vault even farther away. The fog in Kong Dante's backpack spilled out all at once. Kong Dante had no idea what was happening. They clearly had a chance to escape together, so why boot him into hell? Just then, a giant blood-red maw yawned open in the shadows below him. Time rewound to a week earlier. At that time, Lychee had marked a red dot on the map. That marked spot was exactly where this gargoyle stood. This gargoyle was the prison's guardian, responsible for intercepting prisoners who tried to escape. Lychee had warned him solemnly, don't ever touch that thing. It's extremely dangerous. But Rambutan hadn't cared. Isn't it just a statue? As long as we don't cross the wall, it won't move. He had even kicked its leg twice. Something this dumb is supposed to stop me? There were countless legends about the gargoyle, with many versions in circulation. The most common said that the gargoyle and the mist had appeared at the same time. Some said it was a government-made security device, a tool specifically used to prevent fog from leaking into the outside world. They didn't want fog clinging to people's bodies, the mist people inhaled, or anything related to it being carried out of the prison. So the world government had always been blocking any escape attempts. As for whether the gargoyle really had a mind of its own, no one could say for sure. Lychee's guess was, it's sentient. It can sense fog, and it can detect who's planning escape in their heart. As long as the gargoyle stands, we can't leave. The more you long for the outside world, the more you dreamed of sunlight and freedom, the more easily the despair in your heart was amplified by the mist. Back then, Rambutan had gripped Lychee's hand tightly. We will get out. I promised I'd take you away from here, back to the normal world, and then marry you out there. Even if there were 10 gargoyles ahead, they couldn't stop me. I can do anything for you. Lychee had been moved to tears by those words. Back to the present. Rambutan had already stepped onto the outer edge of the wall. When he looked back, his pupils shrank in shock at the sight. The gargoyle that supposedly never moved was actually moving. It had opened its jaws, ready to swallow Kong Dante whole. Just as the gargoyle's mouth snapped shut, Rambutan and Lychee landed on the sandy ground outside the wall. Rambutan could barely contain his excitement. The plan had worked. He had stuffed the fog into Kong Dante's backpack beforehand, using Kong Dante to draw the gargoyle's attention. The gargoyle would naturally judge that the person carrying a huge amount of fog was the one who had to be intercepted. So it fixed on Kong Dante and ignored the two of them. Seizing that opening, they bolted into the distance. The sun overhead was dazzling and strange. Though a desert stretched before them, Rambutan still believed that if they kept moving forward, they would one day leave this place. We did it. His face was full of longing. We're free now. He hadn't noticed the tiny specks of blood on his face. Only when he turned back did he see, Lychee's head was gone. For him, that single moment was enough to tear his entire life apart. He lifted his gaze toward the gargoyle, his murderous hatred nearly solid with intensity. Strands of blue hair still clung to the gargoyle's mouth. Rambutan's heart caved in at once. He tried desperately to change the ending, but there was nothing he could do. The gargoyle chewed slowly. 2 or 3 seconds later, Lychee was completely gone. Rambutan broke down totally. He no longer had any reason to keep running. The faith that had supported his life had just been eaten. In the next instant, he dropped Lychee's mangled body and charged at the gargoyle with a roar. He unleashed every last ounce of strength and fury, determined to die with the monster. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the gargoyle, landing a vicious kick. At the same time, the gargoyle opened its mouth and inhaled hard. Under that terrifying suction, Rambutan's legs began to disintegrate, and his body slowly turned into blue mist, drawn into its belly. Even in his final moment, he was filled with regret. He had personally led the most important person in his life down this road to death. If he could do it over, he would rather stay trapped in this prison forever than ever let her take that risk again. After devouring Kong Dante, Rambutan, and Lychee, the gargoyle let out a satisfied burp. At this moment, 182 was standing not far away, glaring at the gargoyle and cursing, "You big idiot. How many times have I told you people like us must never leave this prison? Why won't you believe me?" He raised his swollen fist and let out a heavy sigh. His words were harsh, but he still had to save the man. His gaze suddenly sharpened. "I told you before, in this prison, he's under my protection. Anyone who touches him, dies." As soon as he finished, 182 swung his fist the size of a sandbag and charged the gargoyle. The instant he climbed onto the wall, the air currents around him began to violently shake. 182 leapt, came right up to the gargoyle, and lightly threw a punch. A dull yet crushingly powerful boom exploded in the mist. An entire tooth of the gargoyle was smashed to pieces by his fist. It had to be said, right now, 182 was absurdly cool. A surge of blue energy welled up in the gargoyle's mouth and blasted outward. 182's figure flickered, and he dodged with ease. To him, this thing was even more annoying than the teacher. Wanting to rescue Kong Dante as quickly as possible, 182 didn't want to waste any time. He attacked with both hands and feet at once, unleashing 20 punches and 20 kicks in just a few seconds. "You thing, break for me." Soon, he had beaten a crack open at the corner of the gargoyle's mouth. 182 pressed up close to its teeth and peered inside. He was checking whether Kong Dante had already been digested. In the next second, he saw that near-crying face. 182, "I'm so glad to see you. I'll follow you from now on. Save me, please. I really know I was wrong. I'll teach you how to grow sweet potatoes properly." 182 stared at him speechlessly, as if he didn't even want to respond. "Now you know you were wrong? What were you doing before?" Even so, he still stretched out his swollen arm and yanked Kong Dante out of the monster's mouth. Once free of the monster's jaws, Kong Dante clung to 182's shoulder and refused to let go. After what had just happened, he had truly thought he was going to die in that hellish place. "At first I thought you were only here to kill me. The way you acted before was too scary. It really made me misunderstand you." 182 said calmly, "Open your eyes now. We're already out. Then hurry up and tell the gargoyles you'll never try to escape again." At that, Kong Dante hesitantly opened his eyes. The moment he did, he saw the gargoyle's hand reaching for him. He almost passed out from fright. "Run. What the hell is this thing? 182, move." Seeing him still yelling, 182 truly was getting annoyed. He stepped on Kong Dante's face, forcing him to his knees. "Do what I tell you. Do you want to live or not? I didn't work this hard to save you so you could stand here babbling. I've told you over and over, there's no exit here. I wasn't lying. You just refused to listen." Kong Dante fell silent. He had to admit that this time, he really had cut off his own way out. In that moment, all his resentment shifted onto Lychee and Rambutan. The gargoyle still lumbered slowly toward Kong Dante. At last he did as 182 said, kneeling on the ground and kowtowing hard to the gargoyle. "I will never try to leave this place again." Once he'd said it, 182 stared hard at the gargoyle. "You heard him. He's not going. Now, get lost." The gargoyle's eyes trembled slightly. It did possess a kind of consciousness, and it could judge very clearly that this one-armed man in front of it was not to be provoked. When Kong Dante raised his head again, that massive figure had already crumbled into sand and slowly faded into the air. Kong Dante fell back to the ground. What was that thing just now? Was I hallucinating? Why did it suddenly vanish? He turned to 182. "That couple, did they get out?" 182 replied coldly, "They're dead. The gargoyle ate them." Kong Dante couldn't believe it. "But they stepped on me and jumped out, didn't they? How could they still get eaten?" 182 explained, "What you just saw was absolutely not a hallucination. Anyone who tries to leave the fog realm dies. That gargoyle is one of the wardens of this land. So far, no one has ever truly beaten them. No matter how strong a prisoner is, there are no exceptions." Elsewhere, the cannibal tribe received an uninvited guest. The hooded girl asked with interest, "Do you cannibals really eat people, or is that just a scary name?" Bone Eater let out a ghastly chuckle at that. "You want to know? Perfect, I've been wanting to taste you." As soon as he finished speaking, his long tongue whipped toward the girl. She poked it away in disgust. "Gross. Put that away." Bone Eater only laughed harder. "Smells very cute to me. With my absolute sense of taste, I'm never wrong. But anyway, what are you here for?" Only then did the girl get to the point. She wanted the cannibal tribe's help with something. Another photo appeared in her hand. "Prisoner number 182. Height also 182. Right arm missing. I need you to find him for me." Bone Eater curled his tongue around the photo and brought it closer, studying it. 182's handsome face looked to him exactly like a top-grade ingredient. "Sounds like you want me to eat him?" The girl's eyes went cold at once. "I won't stop you from eating him. But if you dare take a bite first, you can try." Bone Eater clicked his tongue and dropped the topic. Then what are you, exactly? The girl replied flatly, I'm a shoulder too. The moment she said it, all his underlings froze. Aren't there only 6 shoulders? Even Bone Eater thought she was being outrageously arrogant. Never seen anyone like you. Unless you're some bumpkin who's never made it out of Zone 0, in which case forget I said anything. The girl's aura suddenly shrank inward, and it was like she became another person. I survived in a place where only the strong live. I'm a fallen shoulder. Talking to me like that, you're not afraid of dying? Elsewhere, a cleaning worker suddenly noticed the gargoyle had returned. But this time, instead of their usual indifference, they were completely shocked. One of the gargoyle's teeth was missing. In theory, such a thing was impossible. They knew all too well how strong the gargoyle was. As far as they knew, no one could injure it in a frontal fight. While everyone was muttering about it, a figure in a black cloak silently appeared behind them. His name was Baba Yaga. His low voice rumbled out, "This is an omen." Everyone jumped in fright. Baba Yaga hadn't spoken a single word for 5 whole years. For him to speak again now meant something big was coming. Baba Yaga was a sorcerer with the talent of prophecy. A crack has appeared in that chain. Every word he spoke was a prophecy. The people present exploded into a frenzy, all whipping out notebooks to record his every word. The bird has spread its wings, and the eagle's claws are about to fall. The day Baba Yaga has awaited is not far off. Soon, a god will be born in this prison. Meanwhile, Kong Dante was still confirming things with 182. That huge white monster just now really killed Lychee and Rambutan? 182 shook his head. Not just that one. There's more than one gargoyle here. Their purpose is to hunt anyone who tries to leave the fog realm. They're insanely strong. I can only handle the one from just now. There are too many of them here. I can't kill them all. And that couple never once explained gargoyles to you properly. They just wanted to use you to stall a gargoyle so they could slip away. The gargoyle's target is whoever's carrying a lot of fog. Hearing that, Kong Dante's whole worldview almost collapsed. It was too much to take in. So, the moment we step past the wall, we're walking to our deaths? Even if we escape one monster, the next one will come? And things like that exist, yet the outside world knows nothing? 182 cut him off impatiently. Shut up. You saw it yourself. If you ever try to cross that wall again, you'll die for sure. And then even I won't be able to save you. Despair flooded Kong Dante's heart completely. So, I really have no way out at all? His knees gave out, and he crashed to the floor. His emotions were almost breaking. You must be lying. Am I really going to be stuck in this prison for life? 182's fist slammed into his face. When I tell you to shut up, can't you just shut up? An hour later, they were back in the room. 182's sweet potatoes still sat on the table. Kong Dante had lost all his former fussiness. Even wilted greens and watery soup he now swallowed quietly. His mind was racing, frantically analyzing the monsters that blocked escape. By his logic, they had to be part of some prison security system, a hallucination-inducing device, or some kind of machine. After all, by any normal standard, creatures that ridiculous shouldn't exist. Compared to him, 182 could barely eat at all with his swollen hand. Whatever that system was, one thing was clear. It was strong enough to keep this whole crowd of abnormal prisoners locked in. And that couple had only given him all that fog to use him as bait. He cursed them silently. They'd gone way too far. In their eyes, was I just some easy-to-trick fool? Thinking that, he couldn't help muttering under his breath, good thing 182 saved me in the end. Rambutan and Lychee had always been living on the edge of life and death. They had no time to spend their feelings on a stranger. From the start, he'd simply been too naive and chosen to trust them. This also reminded him, from now on, he had to be more guarded with anyone who got close, or he could get tricked again at any time. Kong Dante wiped his tears away. When I got eaten, I really thought I was dead. He turned to look at 182. He truly didn't understand. Why had 182 saved him? This time it wasn't for sweet potatoes, or for that shirt, or even because he was a teacher. So what reason had 182 had to come after him? And 182 had repeatedly warned him not to try escaping. All these questions piled up in his mind, making him ever more curious. Could it be that 182 was actually a good person? He thought of all the harsh things he'd said, and 182 had never really held them against him. At that thought, his tears slipped out again. From now on, I have to treat 182 properly. I can't keep yelling at him like before. Just then, he noticed 182's hand was so swollen it looked like stone. He couldn't even hold a fork. How did your hand end up like this? It's even more swollen than before. We need to get you to a hospital fast. 182 instinctively hid his hand behind his back, but even his broad back couldn't conceal that puffed-up arm. Just a small injury. Probably just a fracture, 182 said coolly. Kong Dante was exasperated. That's a small injury? With swelling like this, you're not in pain? 182 insisted, it doesn't hurt. Kong Dante reached out and pinched lightly, and 182 sucked in a sharp breath. He wasn't fine, he'd just been gritting his teeth. 10 minutes later, Kong Dante had roughly splinted the arm with cloth strips. 1A2 looked thoroughly displeased. Take this off. Kong Dante refused. It's a temporary fix. Move it around and it'll hurt even more. Don't take it off. No matter how Kong Dante explained, 182 refused to be bound. I need my hand to eat and to use the toilet. How am I supposed to live all tied up? Kong Dante let out a long sigh. Are you really that clueless, or are you pretending? If a fracture isn't set, it might be useless for life. You think you can get by in this place on just your legs? 182 went quiet. Even he couldn't miss the weight behind those words. Right now, they were both weaklings. Neither had any ability to really protect anyone. Out there, if they ran into any random thug, they might die in the brief moment they passed each other. After a pause, 182 finally spoke. Then let's go to the hospital. At the word hospital, Kong Dante's eyes lit up. This place actually has a hospital? It's not some butcher shop, is it? The answer, though, was that it was a normal hospital. It was just that 182 didn't know exactly where it was. Kong Dante was speechless. You're not lying to me, are you? It turned out 182 had once gotten into a fight with a doctor and vaguely remembered that he was somewhere around Zone 0. At Zone 0, Kong Dante immediately thought of Lychee's hand-drawn map. That area was obviously much bigger than where they were now. Then it suddenly hit him. Right. I have the map. I can just look it up. He immediately began rummaging through the room for his backpack. Soon he found it in the corner. If he remembered correctly, the map should be inside. Sure enough, not only was the map there, but there were also a dozen or so fog spheres that hadn't spilled out. Kong Dante nearly jumped for joy. The map's here. We can go find the hospital. He didn't notice at all that 182's eyes were already fixed on the fog. There's still this many, enough for a month. Kong Dante spread the map out and started carefully searching for any medical markings. The hospital icon was tiny. He didn't dare miss a single corner and checked every inch. 2 full hours later, he finally found the medical center mark in one corner. Your hand can be saved. I found the medical center, and a bunch of info with it. But by then, 182 was already completely lost in the world of fog and couldn't take in a word. From the layout of the map, Kong Dante inferred that the whole Fogland was structured like a sliced pizza. What they had drawn was only 4 of the sectors. After confirming the hospital's position, Kong Dante began searching for something else, something like a central control room. Very soon, he saw that the center of the map looked as if it had been slashed. On closer inspection, it didn't look torn, it looked folded. The small folded section underneath was even taped down. That made Kong Dante realize at once that something crucial had to be hidden there. He carefully lifted that folded piece. What appeared before his eyes was exactly what he'd been searching for, the command center, the headquarters of the fog. A light unlike anything before flashed in Kong Dante's eyes. At the very center of Fogland was a central command. His escape route might well be hidden there. Thinking that, Kong Dante turned immediately and called to 182 behind him. 182, get over here. I've got a plan. We're going to the center. But when he turned, all he saw was 182 leaning back slightly, wearing a blissful expression. No one knew how many fog spheres he had just eaten. Meanwhile, on the other side, at the entrance of an information shop, 2 burly men were about to open the door. Rough laughter drifted from inside, their boss's laughter. The tattoo-faced man was the well-known information broker of this area, Kasim. This month, he had made quite a lot of fog-selling information. If luck was on his side, he might soon track down that one-armed man. The noisy, chaotic atmosphere around him looked, in his eyes, like a pancake stall on fire, and he was obsessed with the smell of it. Just then, a lackey at the door came to report that a customer had arrived. Kasim carelessly told them to let the guest in. He soon realized something was off about the lackey's expression. The man who stepped through the door was extremely tall, with a heavy iron cage over his head. The killing intent coming off him made the air in the room grow heavy. Kasim froze as well. He had never seen anyone this tall. Standing in front of him, the man was like a small mountain, a literal man-eating monster. As an information dealer, he of course recognized that iron cage. It was the lock used to restrain Bone Eater's appetite. With a monster physique like his, Bone Eater was the most dangerous of all the thugs in the neighboring districts. Kasim forced himself to stay calm, politely asking what brought him here, even as his nerves were buzzing. Monsters of this level almost never showed themselves. Why would someone like that come to his tiny shop? Bone Eater handed over a photo. This prisoner, number 182, height 182, missing one arm. Can you help me find him? Kasim examined it carefully and recognized him almost at a glance. Wasn't this the very man Hound was scouring the world for? From the subtle change in his eyes, Bone Eater had already seen it. Kasim had definitely seen 182. Once he was sure the man was looking for 182, Kasim's mind started spinning. A double commission, huh? Pressing down the smile at the corner of his lips, he slowly said, actually, we've already started investigating this lead. And this lead doesn't only have you as a buyer, but if you're willing to pay more, I can sell it exclusively to you. He never imagined that Bone Eater's way of thinking wouldn't fit any normal logic at all. Since you're going to help me find him, your life will be enough payment. I think that's a good deal, don't you? Kasim almost fell out of his chair. What kind of joke is that? Don't you know attacking information dealers is against the rules of the underworld? Who would risk their life while they're working for a client? Bone Eater didn't listen to a word. He slowly removed the iron cage from his head and licked his lips. Then I'll just take a little taste of your ear first, see how it feels. Cold sweat instantly slid down Kasim's forehead. Moments later, a shrill scream echoed through the room. On the floor lay a pool of blood, a hat that had been knocked off, and the commission photo. By then, one of Kasim's ears was gone. Bone Eater chewed and made a satisfied sound. Kasim's ear tasted surprisingly good. Over the man's screams, he spoke boldly. Send people to find him immediately. If you don't, I'll eat you whole. With that, he spat out a single earring. On the other side, Dante had not only located the central headquarters on Lychee's hand-drawn map. It was in a prison sector used specifically to hold women. Dante guessed Lychee had probably started drawing the map from there. Speaking of that women's building, Dante suddenly thought of someone. He couldn't help muttering under his breath, I wonder how she's doing now. He remembered she seemed to be called Lala. That day, when they got out of the car, they each headed to different classrooms. Before parting, they'd even agreed to meet again next time. If Dante remembered correctly, Lala, like him, was also a science teacher. She shouldn't have been kidnapped, right? Dante shook his head, trying to shake off the wild thoughts. There's no way everyone is as unlucky as I am. She must be fine. But what he didn't know was that at that very moment, Lala's face was painted like a clown, and she was being re-educated by a group of female prisoners in the women's prison. Her eyes were brimming with tears, and in her mind she kept replaying the moment she had parted ways with Dante. That day, Lala was assigned to the women's prison sector. From the very start, her route had been completely different from the other teachers. A tall agent led the way for her. But Lala's attention had been captured by the phenomenon of the fog outside. For a science teacher, that kind of natural phenomenon was far too tempting, and she never realized that something was wrong. After a while, the agent stopped beside a car and motioned for her to get in. A faint unease rose in Lala's heart. Is my classroom really that far? I have to take a car? But the agent just urged her to hurry up and get in. After a moment's hesitation, she still climbed aboard. At the time, she had no idea she was walking step by step into an abyss. Once the car started moving, the agent casually asked, "You're a science teacher?" When she confirmed it, the agent slowly pulled off her mask. Lala froze, and realized instantly she was done for. The woman in front of her was smiling in a grotesquely twisted way. Her features were so warped they were almost terrifying. She tossed aside her hat, and long hair of gold interwoven with crimson tumbled down. A distorted smile spread across her face. "Little fledgling bird, let's fly to the end of the world together." Lala's mind nearly snapped on the spot. This is like a nightmare? Unfortunately, reality was reality. It wouldn't change in the slightest for her fear. And so, Lala was kidnapped to this infamous women's prison. Back to the present. Lala was being ordered by a group of female prisoners to bend over a table and do various poses. No matter what they said, she had no choice but to obey. Her face was the picture of collapse. In this extreme, dangerous area, she hadn't even seen a trace of any other teacher. Thinking of that, her legs gave out, and she sank into a squat on the floor. Most likely, both the Operations Bureau and her family had already lost all trace of her. In the eyes of the prisoner behind her, this only earned contempt. "You can't even handle standing for a bit?" A black-haired woman suddenly yanked her hair. Crying again, "You idiot? Want another beating?" She shoved Lala to the ground and shouted, "You've ruined the smell of the fog. Maybe I should punish you." Her fury toward Lala came from one thing. In her mind, Lala had stolen her place in the boss's favor. She ground out, "Do you have any talent at all for researching fog? Every day I see you hiding in corners, crying. Just admit you can't produce fog. As long as you admit it, I can go back to the boss's side." Terrified, Lala shook like a leaf, but she knew she could not give in now. Admitting she couldn't make fog would be a death sentence. She bit down on her lips and stayed silent. Seeing that, the black-haired woman grabbed her clothes, and a knife appeared in her hand. "I never believed you could make fog, not from the start. How did trash like you ever earn the boss's trust?" Looking closely, her eyes were milky white. She was blind. Maybe because of that, she harbored a special hatred for pretty faces. She planned to slash Lala's face and make her pay. Lala stared at the knife, her eyes full of terror. "I probably won't escape this time." Just then, a large hand clamped down on the woman's head, and a sharp voice snapped, "Stop. Don't let me ever see something like this again." Everyone jolted. The boss had arrived. A faint sense of relief rose in Lala's heart as well. At least, for now, she was still alive. The boss everyone mentioned was also a woman. But looking at those bulging muscles and that massive frame, she seemed less like a woman and more like a man wearing a woman's skin. The boss patted her underling's head. Don't you think this joke's going a bit too far? Are you treating me like air? She walked up to Lala, and her voice suddenly turned gentle. My dear little bird, what happened? Tell me, and I'll stand up for you. The underling couldn't hold back any longer. Boss, listen to me, she's been lying to you this whole time. She just admitted she can't produce fog at all. Lala rushed to speak before the boss could respond. Boss, don't believe her. I can. I can create fog. I've never said I couldn't. She's framing me. The underling had indeed tried to frame her just now, but she was certain of one thing. Lala absolutely could not make fog. You think we're all idiots? The boss's face went dark in an instant. Shut up. Didn't you hear her just say she can create fog? Are your ears deaf? Rebuked, the woman's face twisted with anger. You'll regret this. But the boss couldn't be bothered with her. In her eyes, this underling was nothing. Right now, Lala was the treasure she held in her palm. Come, my little bird. Though Lala was terrified of this woman who was like a giant beast, she didn't dare disobey a single word. On the street, the boss's hearty laughter echoed. My little bird, I was only gone a short while and they bullied you again. They've really gone too far. Back in the room, Lala was scooped right into her arms, like a rag doll. Callie's body was simply too huge. This female boss's name was Callie. She was one of the leaders of the women's department. She was known as a tendon sorcerer, and was said to be able to focus her strength into any part of her body. Normally, she deliberately kept the muscles of her neck tense to guard against sneak attacks. And Lala was the treasure she had personally kidnapped. Ever since she was brought here, Lala had barely spent a moment out of Callie's arms. Every day, Callie clung to her, and there was only one topic: fog. Now, Callie leaned close, a twisted smile spreading across her face. How was the fog research coming along? Smoothly? Last time, she had brought Lala a whole bag of candy, something Lala had once said she needed. Now she asked again, do you need anything else? Seeing Lala hesitate, Callie's expression slowly stiffened. Don't tell me, like Nox said, you can't make fog at all. Lala forced down her fear. If she panicked, she would expose herself. I'm almost done. I just don't have enough time. Nox keeps giving me trouble and holding me back. In truth, she still hadn't even figured out what fog actually was. Her so-called research was nothing more than an excuse to stay alive. Callie sprang to her feet. So all you've been missing is time? Why didn't you say so earlier? Before she even finished, she flung the door open. I'm going to find Nox now. From today on, she won't bother you again. No matter how Lala called after her, Callie never stopped, stomping off down the hall and shouting for Nox to come out and face her. Lala felt her mind go blank. This is bad. She had only wanted to use that excuse to stall for a few days. She hadn't meant to cause such a disaster. Not long after, heavy footsteps sounded outside the door. Seeing Callie return, Lala let out a small breath. Back so soon? You couldn't find Nox? If that were the case, she might still have more time. But the next sentence made her blood run cold. You've got all the time you need now. Nox will never bother you again. Lala's heart clenched. This is between me and Nox. Lady Callie, you didn't need to get involved. I'll talk to her properly. But Callie just lowered her gaze to the floor. Say something, Nox. A head slowly poked out from behind the curtain. Lala instinctively started to relax, but a second later, she realized something was wrong. Callie suddenly grabbed the head like a ball and lifted it up. Now you can focus on producing fog. Nox won't take up a single moment of your time. Lala went rigid. Everyone here is insane. I'm the only normal person. Practically shaking with excitement, Callie burst into crazed laughter. As long as my dear little bird has time, she'll be able to create an endless supply of fog. Wonderful, fog is finally going into mass production. In that moment, Lala completely broke down. She knew that now Nox was dead, her own death wouldn't be far behind. Elsewhere, Kong Dante and 182 were imitating the prisoner's gait as they slowly moved toward Zone Zero's command center. But Kong Dante's exaggerated movements left 182 completely baffled. Kong Dante explained, there's a saying, if you want to hide a tree, hide it in a forest. I'm wearing a white hood and copying how they walk. 182, don't you think I look just like a prisoner now? Without a word, 182 kicked him. Can't you stop breathing so loud? You're annoying. And you walk way too slow, nothing like a normal prisoner. Then he started sulking. I don't want to walk anymore. I'm hungry. We passed 2 cafeterias and you wouldn't let me eat. Kong Dante looked at him helplessly. You're a grown man, and you're throwing a tantrum over food? I told you, the cafeterias are dangerous, too many eyes on us. Right now, 182 was no longer the aimless fool he'd once been, eating when hungry, sleeping when tired, and throwing punches at anyone who provoked him. Since losing his right arm, he could no longer accept every fight, but he also refused to stop moving forward. Kong Dante's words made his eyes widen. Our backs are to a cliff. One more step back and it's a dead end. So the only way is forward. Kong Dante's eyes were more serious than ever. With that, he continued forward with that odd gait, leading 182 step by step closer to the neighboring district's command center. Not long after, 182 and Kong Dante arrived at the first destination of their journey. According to Lychee's map, the medical center was located in Dumpling Village. Kong Dante urged 182, hurry up and go in. The sooner we find the hospital, the sooner we can take care of your hand. In theory, 182 had fought with a doctor here before, so he should have been at least somewhat familiar with the area. But to Kong Dante's surprise, 182 had no memory of this village at all. One thing's for sure though, this isn't Tofu Village. Kong Dante adjusted the glasses under his hood and silently digested this completely useless piece of information. 182 reminded him to be careful once they entered the village. There are some tough people here. The villagers are all hot-tempered too. After they walked for a while, they saw a sign, Dumpling Village. Unlike Tofu Village, the street here had rows of shops on both sides, each one lit by electric lights. The sight made Kong Dante feel as if he were looking at the outside world. Compared to the primitive chaos of Tofu Village, this place's economic system was on a whole different level. He couldn't help being amazed. These prisoners had actually built such a complete economic structure inside a prison. Hiding deep in an alleyway, Kong Dante watched people come and go in the village. It was much busier than he'd imagined. According to the map, these villages were all within some shoulder's sphere of influence. Every shaded area belonged to a different shoulder. But the strange thing was, the medical center they were headed to wasn't included in any territory at all. Maybe that place had long since been forgotten. But the more cut off a place was, the more cautious Kong Dante became. The less anyone watches a place, the more careful you need to be. He beckoned to 182 behind him to duck into the alley. When he turned his head, there was no one there. By then, 182 had already walked into a dumpling shop and casually told the owner, "Give me some dumplings." Kong Dante almost fainted on the spot. How did this guy get into trouble the second I looked away? Wasn't he the one who just said the people here are hard to deal with? The square-faced owner stepped forward to take payment. Here, money meant fog, 0.1 grams per dumpling. 182 said with a straight face, "I don't have a single speck of fog. Do you want my fist?" As soon as he said that, a huge crash shook the shop. But to Kong Dante's surprise, the one being pummeled and rolling around on the floor was 182. As the owner beat him, he yelled, "No money and you want dumplings? Get out of here." The passers-by outside all shot the owner looks of admiration. He was already known as someone not to be messed with. No one had expected someone would dare try to eat his dumplings for free. Kong Dante was on the verge of a breakdown. Great. Now we're officially thieves. What made him want to cough blood was that 182 had no idea he was robbing the place and was still shouting for the owner to hand over the dumplings. The owner's face was dark. "So you want to eat, for free, dumplings that carry Dumpling Village's very soul and history?" In his eyes, 182 was making a joke out of his craftsmanship. Just as 182 was about to blurt out yes, Kong Dante slammed a hand over his mouth. "I'm sorry. I apologize for him. I'll pay for the dumplings. Please don't hold this idiot's behavior against him." The owner snorted. "And who are you? Another thief?" Kong Dante hastily explained, "I'm not a thief. He's my younger brother and he's not right in the head. Please don't take him seriously." The owner wouldn't listen. "So you're not a thief? Then you're a bandit. You're wearing such a suspicious mask. How am I supposed to trust you?" Then he shouted, "In our village, evil people aren't allowed in." He called the villagers over, intending to deal with the pair on the spot. Only then did Kong Dante fully realize, 182 had been right. The villagers here really were fierce, and their logic was extremely unique. Just as things were about to spiral out of control, an old man shuffled out and stopped the rampaging owner. The old man's head was round like a dumpling, and he was very short. The moment he appeared, everyone fell silent. He was Dumpling Village's most respected figure, Elder Dumpling, Mongol. Kong Dante's heart sank. A big shot. The elder walked up to Kong Dante and asked gently, "Your brother is sick, isn't he?" Seeing 182's bandaged arm, he figured the man had suffered a serious injury. The dumpling shop owner, however, kept going on about how 182 had tried to steal dumplings. The elder gave a cold little laugh. "Didn't you see he doesn't even have an arm? Tell me then, how exactly is he supposed to steal?" With that, he ignored the owner and turned to the two newcomers. "Come with me." At the elder's shop, they were served several steaming baskets of buns. "Eat slowly. There's plenty more." The elder looked them over. "You both look quite decent. Why wear such villain-looking masks?" Kong Dante gave an awkward laugh. "We don't want to cause unnecessary trouble here. Wearing hoods is actually safer." Watching Kong Dante eat with gusto, 182 kept opening his mouth, motioning to be fed. Kong Dante paid him no attention and carefully savored his bun instead. This is pretty good. What's in the filling? When he heard the filling came from leftovers from the cafeteria, he immediately sprayed a mouthful all over the elder's face. In the next second, he dumped all the remaining buns into 182's mouth. Just thinking about something made from wilted greens and leftover soup makes me sick. You can have it. The elder had a remarkably good temper and took no offense at Kong Dante's rudeness. Our dumplings and buns are famous across the region. Many people travel from far away just for a taste. He paused, then went on. Of course, not everyone comes just for the dumplings. Some come for something else. The hospital. 182 was still stretching his mouth wide, completely oblivious to the look of shock on Kong Dante's face. The whole point of their trip was to find this hospital. Seeing his reaction, the elder smiled. I'm guessing you're here for the hospital too? If that's the case, I advise you to stop here. Cold sweat slid down Kong Dante's forehead. Is there something terrifying in that hospital? The elder slowly rolled up his sleeves, revealing arms covered in scars. It's not a hospital anymore. Now we call it Demon King Castle. Kong Dante couldn't help swallowing hard. The name alone said enough. Now, Demon King Castle still looked like a hospital from the outside, but it was surrounded by thorns and wire. Almost no one who entered ever came out again. In Dumpling Village, it was a strictly forbidden zone. Meanwhile, back at the information broker's base, they had spent the day compiling all the data collected by the information dealers. The table in front of them listed every prisoner in Fogland. The Fogland system recycles the numbers of deceased prisoners and reassigns them to new ones. So a single number might appear on two different people. This system had been running for decades. But according to the records, the prisoner with the number 182 had long been marked as dead. For the decades since then, the number 182 had never been reassigned, so none of the information brokers had any idea where this white-haired guy had come from. One of them guessed maybe he had just picked up a dead man's number tag. There were plenty of people who liked to steal rare number tags. The boss of the information network didn't agree, though, because he'd heard Hound say that when 182 joined the sweet potato class, he received new clothes. That meant the prisoner number had to be real, otherwise, he could never have been issued a new uniform. That statement made the two underlings jump. Pointing at the photo, one of them said slowly, if he didn't die decades ago, wouldn't he look way too young now? That's insane. Did he get some ability that lets him stay young forever? The boss's face darkened. That was impossible. No one had ever stayed young forever. He racked his brains. The system had been updating for decades, long enough for any information dealer to have heard something, yet no matter how they searched, all they could find were scraps of basic data. So he had two theories. First, that the administration had hidden 182 away, which would be easy enough for them to do. But the second theory was far more disturbing. If the administration hadn't tampered with 182's identity at all, then this man was far more mysterious than he'd imagined. The boss's leading guess was that 182 might be a monster that had appeared at the same time as Fogland itself. Back to Demon King Castle. Its horror came from a single man who lived inside. He was like a demon god, stationed within that building. The scars on the elder's arm were that man's handiwork. I suggest you don't even go near it. So far, I've never seen anyone walk out of there alive. A possibility flashed through Kong Dante's mind. Could that man be a shoulder? The elder shot the idea down immediately. He's not a shoulder. Then the elder's expression turned grave. You probably don't know, even the shoulders don't dare step into Demon King Castle. Hearing that, Kong Dante's heart clenched, and cold sweat soaked his back. What kind of monster could be living in that place? Then he suddenly remembered why he'd come. If there's no doctor, then won't 182's hand be ruined for good? The elder shook his head. The doctor you're looking for isn't here. That's all I can tell you. In any case, leave as soon as it's light. I'll arrange a room for you tonight. Kong Dante's mood crashed. So, the so-called doctor has already died in there? Or did this demon king kill all the doctors? Soon after, they were given a simple room. Kong Dante frowned. I really don't know what to do now. The hospital's become Demon King Castle. We can't get in at all. And from the sound of it, there's no doctor inside. He lifted his head to look at 182. When exactly did you see a doctor there? 182 thought for a bit. Before, Kong Dante felt a fresh stab of pain in his temples. Be specific. When? What was the hospital like back then? What happened? Tell me everything. 182 tilted his head, trying hard to recall. My hand got cut off. Kong Dante's breath hitched. The doctor cut it off? Back then, 182's arm had been severed. Blood wouldn't stop pouring out. His head was spinning, and he was starving. He staggered into the hospital looking for help. A doctor came to meet him, and 182 immediately felt hopeful, blurting out, "Doctor, make me a new arm." At that point, Kong Dante broke in. You really said it just like that? And then? What did the doctor say? After thinking hard, 182 answered, I think he swore at me, something really filthy. Idiot, why don't you teach me how to make you a new arm, you damn white hair? Kong Dante actually found that reaction reasonable. Even with advanced tech, we're nowhere near casually building arms. At the time, 182 got furious and started hitting the doctor. Cold sweat beaded on Kong Dante's forehead. Shouldn't you have been stopping the bleeding and bandaging yourself? How did you have the energy to fight? How does your brain even work? After that, it turned into a full-on brawl, fists and kicks from both sides, neither willing to back down. Kong Dante had assumed the doctor in Demon King Castle must have died by 182's hand. An ordinary person couldn't possibly withstand his punches. But 182's answer was not what he expected. He hadn't killed the doctor. Instead, the doctor had pinned 182 to the ground and beaten him senseless, to the point where he couldn't even fight back. Thinking of it now, 182 ground his teeth. This time, I'm getting even. Kong Dante quickly stopped him. Who are you going to fight now? Calm down. We're here to find a doctor, not to challenge a demon king. And the elder already said the doctor isn't in the hospital anymore. But 182 was very sure. The doctor's in Demon King Castle. Of course I'm going there to fight him. Why are you stopping me? Kong Dante blinked. How do you know the doctor's still alive, and that he's in Demon King Castle? 182 pointed at his own ear. I heard him. I'm 100% sure. The moment they'd stepped into Dumpling Village, 182 had picked up the sound of scissors clinking, the sound of surgical scissors. At the same time, in a certain room in Demon King Castle, a hand was spinning a pair of scissors. By the window, a black figure stood with hands clasped behind his back. This man was the doctor 182 had spoken of. Early the next morning, Kong Dante brought 182 to the outside of Demon King Castle. The ground was stained with blood everywhere. Looking up, they saw an old, broken sign that read Medical Center. Bodies lay scattered all over the ground, some already dried into mummies under the sun, ones that had been there longer reduced to bare bones. The elder hadn't exaggerated. This place was no longer a hospital at all. It was hell itself. You really hear the doctor in there? Kong Dante asked again. 182 snapped. Didn't I just say I can hear him? You keep asking and asking, it's annoying. That detail, however, made Kong Dante strangely excited. 182's hearing is far beyond normal. He had only truly realized it last night. At the time, he hadn't understood why 182 could hear sounds no one else could. 182 couldn't explain it either. I just hear it. Can you explain why you can see things? In his mind, hearing sounds was simply natural. Pushed by Kong Dante's repeated questions, 182 got so irritated he finally just threw out an I don't know. Only then did Kong Dante realize, could it be that after eating so much fog, 182 awakened some sort of hearing ability? 182 himself was utterly confused. I've never had any kind of talent. Kong Dante rejected that. No way. You ate that much fog, and now you can hear what no one else can. Isn't that an auditory talent? No wonder he always complained that Kong Dante was noisy. It was because his hearing was too sharp. To confirm it, Kong Dante deliberately covered his mouth and whispered a curse, using almost nothing but breath. The sound was so faint even he could barely hear it. But 182 instantly snapped his head around and glared at him. Goosebumps rose all over Kong Dante. He can't be messing with me, right? He was about to say more when 182 lightly kicked him in the chest. If I hadn't held back, you'd be dead already. That was exactly why Kong Dante now stood before Demon King Castle, eyes full of both shock and delight. This was undeniably a kind of ability that only appeared in Fogland. Staring at the creepy building, Kong Dante couldn't even tell whether to call it a hospital or Demon King Castle. They soon reached the main entrance. Just as 182 was about to swagger straight in, Kong Dante yanked him over to the wall. You idiot, don't just rush in. Come here first, let's go over the plan. The two of them hid by the doorway and peered inside with half their heads. From the outside, the door indeed looked like the main entrance. Since 182 could hear any sound from within, Kong Dante had set up a reconnaissance plan for him, something they had rehearsed the night before. To keep him from forgetting, Kong Dante had him repeat it. Knock first, then hide immediately. If the one who comes out isn't the doctor, grab the teacher and run. 182 recited it crisply, which made Kong Dante unexpectedly pleased. His IQ really does seem to have gone up. They even gave the operation a loud name, the Knock Observe Retreat Plan. The reason Kong Dante had 182 alone on the front line was that he believed 182 not only had super hearing, but was also incredibly fast, no slower than Rambutan. Does he have two abilities? Kong Dante hid behind the wall, focused on the entrance ahead. 182 would probe, while he gathered intel from a position of zero risk. Soon, 182 walked up to the door and tapped it lightly with his foot a few times. Then he shot back like a gust of wind to hide beside Kong Dante. They leaned out together to watch. The doorway remained completely still. No sound, 182 said. Kong Dante, puzzled, told him to try again, this time with more force. So 182 went to the door again and kicked the panel hard a few times, then flashed back to hide behind Kong Dante. But the inside was still dead silent, not even a hint of movement. Could the whole building be empty? Then where did the doctor's voice you heard come from? As Kong Dante was wondering, 182 suddenly charged in. Get back here. Don't be so reckless. But this time was different. The moment 182's foot touched the door, the entire door flew off its hinges. With a boom, the whole building shook. Inwardly, Kong Dante cursed like crazy. He's way too impulsive. This is Demon King Castle. By the time he looked up again, 182 was gone from the entrance. Clearly, that figure had already rushed inside to challenge the doctor. Kong Dante could only call out quietly, 182, you can hear me, right? Come out, quick. I'm kind of scared out here alone. No sooner had he spoken than 182 did appear, but only because someone had kicked him flying out from inside. He tumbled several times across the ground before finally coming to a stop. The sheer force of that single blow was enough to shock Kong Dante. This doctor's combat strength is at least on par with 182's. He looked up toward the door. A blurred figure was slowly stepping out of the shadows. Is that the Demon King himself? 1 step, 2 steps. On his feet, clean white shoes. On his legs, dark blue pants. In his hand, a pair of scissors kept spinning. Kong Dante froze completely. Not at all what I imagined. A low voice drifted over. You damn white hair. Was last time's lesson not enough? You dare come back for another beating? The man before them was the very doctor 182 had spoken of.